Okay, thank you, Munir. And thank you for making me feel very old. Okay, so as Munir said, my name is Finbarr Kirwan. I'm the Senior Director of High Performance with the US Olympic Committee. And before I start, I want to do one thing, and I want to acknowledge Munir's work with the US Olympic Committee while he was with us. We've gone through a cultural shift within the organization over the last couple of years where we have recognized that we are behind all of our competitors, well, not all, but a very substantial portion of our competitors in the context of tech and innovation. And Munir helped us make that cultural shift to recognizing that we need to do a better job. In the context of my work, I have one main job, and that job is to help put Team USA athletes onto the podium at the Olympic Games. And in Rio in 2016, Team USA won 121 medals, and the teams that I support, so track and field, swimming, shooting, equestrian, weightlifting, and golf, they won 73 of the 121 medals. So the way that we support our athletes is by utilizing the resources that we have available to us. It's very, very important that you understand a good portion of you are from, I would say the majority are from Europe, where government funding drives Olympic sport. In the US, there's zero government funding, zero. We don't get a dollar from the government. So every single dollar has to be raised from a donor or from a sponsor. So please keep that in mind as we talk through this. What it does is drive an entrepreneurial and commercial spirit that I had not seen before I worked in Ireland for 10 years running the Olympic program there. So a little bit of background here. The reality is that we are behind our competitors, okay? In finance, in medicine, in science, I believe that we can compete. But in the context of technology and innovation, we are behind, and we are making great efforts to catch up with our colleagues in Britain, New Zealand, Australia, and China. And what we've had to do is, rather than going to a minister for sport and ask for money, we've had to go out and raise the money ourselves. But what we have in the US is a culture of, I guess I use the phrase entrepreneurialism. There is a desire for Team USA to succeed at the Olympic Games. And we've been able to tap into a very, very strong seam of investment from partners in primarily Silicon Valley. And they have been inspired by the idea of innovation and technology impacting on Team USA athletes. And over recent years, last 2 years, we've been able to raise over $3.4 million through our relationships with those venture capitalists and technology leaders. Right now, we got 20 projects underway, and there's one of them I want to talk to you about. And what's nice about this is that you heard from Christina Chase this morning from the MIT Sports Lab. This is a project that has evolved into a collaboration with MIT. And we're very, very fortunate to be able to work with them, and we're very thankful for their support. That project is not the sexy end of track and field. It's about the throws. Okay, so shot put, discus, hammer, javelin. But what it reflects is the impact that technology can have on the changing dialogue between a coach and an athlete, okay? And recognition of a problem and using technology to fix that problem. And a couple of data points here. So historically, Team USA have had very, very talented throwers, particularly shot putters. Okay, and we don't really care. We don't care if we win the 100 meters men's race or we win the women's shot put. We're kind of medal agnostic. We just want to make sure that we win the Olympic Games on the summer side. And what we noticed coming out of the 2012 Games was that only 3 or 13% of our throwers were throwing further at the Olympic Games 5 weeks later. So that meant 87% of them were deteriorating in performance, okay, which was a serious problem. We were averaging just 1 for an available 24 medals, which in the context of other events for us is severe underperformance. What was critical in the last bullet here was that our competition, the non-US throwers, they were improving. Okay, with each passing day, they were getting better as they got into the games. So 52 of 86 non-US athletes, or 60%, were throwing further. So Team USA, 13% down here, the rest of the world at 60%. Okay, that's a problem, and we had to fix that if we were to hit the targets that we had set with that sport. What we recognized is that there were a bunch of factors involved here. Peaking and tapering, travel fatigue, big athletes sitting in small economy class seats, so basic fundamental issues that needed to be addressed. But one of the key things that we noticed when we discussed with athletes, why is this happening? Why are you underperforming at the major championship? What we noticed was that the engagement between the coach and the athlete in that final 30 to 40 day window was not the same engagement that they had leading into the Olympic trials. The coach was absent, okay, because we cannot have credentialed coaches for every single one of the athletes. When the team size is 600, well, actually, if we look at it, about 1,000 plus people will travel on Team USA to the Olympic Games. Okay, so we cannot credential every coach. So what we were hearing from the athletes was that we do not and cannot connect with our personal coach when we are at training camp. Please help us fix that. So part of what we looked at, and part of the theme that I have with my team when we go to support athletes is, do simple better. Find a solution that may already exist, refine the solution so that it suits the athletes that we're working with. And what we found was that we found a company called TrackMan, okay, and some of you will be familiar with that company. Their primary business was actually tracking golf balls, okay? If you watch television and you see the flight of the ball, the flight of the drive, that's actually radar technology at work. So what we said to TrackMan was, hey, wait a minute, what about us collaborating with you and you actually refining that technology so we could track the shot put and you could track the hammer throw. And critically, you could create a coachable moment for the athlete in a remote location. So they went to work, and what they were able to do is actually define an outcome for us that has changed the way that shot put is coached in the US. Okay, so it doesn't matter what it could be. It could be shot put, it could be long jump, it could be the sprints. Who cares? The point is that coaching is now different in the US for these events because we now have immediate feedback. Okay, we have video, an immediate return to the athlete. They get back to the ring, they see the video, and they get 4 key data points. They get speed of release, height of release, angle of release, and distance. That information was never provided to the athlete before. This information then goes up to the cloud, and the athlete then has an opportunity to have a conversation with their coach remotely about how best to adjust the workout for the next day. The long and the short of this is that this, plus a number of other interventions that occurred leading into Rio, saw us win 2 gold medals in men's and women's shot put, plus a silver medal. And the data shot you're seeing here is a video plus data overlay for the Olympic silver medalist in the shot put, Joe Kovacs, at training camp in Rio. So Joe's coach was not at the training camp, but the conversation was enabled and was reinforced by this process of optimizing video and data. So a great example of us trying to leverage the information, the quality technology that's out there in a different sport and utilize it within our own sport. A couple of things I wanted to touch on as well for Tokyo. We have a lot of vendors who approach us and say, hey, we want to get involved with the US Olympic team. There's so much that we can offer you. Well, there's 3 things I think that matter most to us. There's a lot of things that matter, but I'm going to put 3 up there right now. The first is sleep, okay? And for sleep, we know for sure that every hour lost of quality sleep results in a 15% reduction in testosterone production for our athletes, okay? So every hour lost of quality sleep results in a very negative physiological outcome. So we need to resolve sleep as we prepare for Tokyo. The second is travel. So for our teams going from the west coast of America, we know for sure that it takes a minimum of 4 days to return to optimal performance for these athletes and these teams. So a project that we did leading into Rio was understanding the individual athlete response to altitude, okay? And we went from 2 medals in London to 7 medals in Rio by defining the individual athlete protocol for altitude training, which in the distance and endurance events is a very, very important aspect of their preparation. So 2 medals to 7 medals by properly understanding how altitude impacts athletes. Similarly with travel, our hope is that we can do an individual athlete response to travel. Okay, so how do athletes adapt to that 12, 13, 14-hour journey? Because what happens is teams just travel as a team, they go. But the physiological impact on that athlete may well be entirely different to the athlete sitting next to him. So we're going to work hard to try and understand how best to do that. The third component, which is obviously familiar to everybody here, is training load. But a key data point we have, okay, and there's research to support this out of Australia. Colleagues in track and field in Australia published this research. There's a 25% drop in likelihood of success for every modified training week. Now, this is specific to track and field, but I'm sure it has application across all other sports. So the question is, how do we modify and understand training load in the context of understanding that if we lose a week, we're losing a quarter of the value of that athlete? So the challenge to us is, how do we integrate those 3 things into a single monitoring application? So sleep, we spoke about sleep. The corollary of what I said is every hour of sleep gives you 15% more testosterone. I prefer looking at it in the negative. Look at it in the negative, which is every hour lost is a 15% reduction, because that's what more likely with young athletes, far more likely to happen. Individual athlete response to travel, we have created travel dashboards for each individual athlete. Okay, every athlete traveling to Asia knows what they should anticipate in that process of travel. They know the protocol that has been assigned to them, and as professional athletes, they're supposed to follow through on that protocol. And then again, training load, I spoke about it, but this dashboard that has been created in collaboration with, actually we haven't announced that contract yet, but it's pending very, very soon. We'll be collaborating with a company, and this dashboard, this training load dashboard, will be made available to athletes and coaches on a daily basis. And again, integrating and aggregating all of the data that we're capturing for these athletes. So again, when vendors approach us, and I appreciate that there are companies in this audience whose job it is to be able to sell their wares, and I completely understand that. But the thing for us as an organization, when we're approached by a company, a couple of critical questions we'll ask. The first question is, are we enhancing the engagement between the coach and athlete? So I go back to the radar tracking project. That project has enabled the coach and the athlete to change the way that they engage. It's a more effective communication. Are we creating solutions that are minimally or non-invasive? So if you're a long jumper and somebody wants to do some work with you, the last thing the athlete wants is to have sensors stuck on them, okay? They don't want stuff on them. Okay, so video becomes a critical component of our preparation and training as we get ready for Tokyo. Video is non-invasive for the most part. And by being non-invasive, it means it's accepted by the athlete. Is the presented information understood, actionable, and remembered? On the slide, the video slide I showed you for the shot put, we've got video, we've got 4 key data points, and we have the whole workout reflected in a single slide or a single video capture. So that enables the coach to say, okay, we're going to work off of one single component part, okay, and that component part is presented right here. Can we scale up at speed? So in the Elite Athlete Monitoring project we're undertaking at the moment, where we're looking at sleep, training load, and travel, we have to move from a current roster of about 350 athletes to approximately 1,500 athletes as we get ready for Tokyo. So the question is the vendor that we work with in a position to scale up to a level that enables us to do that without any compromise in service or delivery to the coaches and the athletes? So scaling up is critical. Then the obvious one, which is anybody in this room will be well aware of, is are we optimizing the health and performance of our athletes? So the challenge on me as a team leader with responsibility for close to 75 medals in Tokyo is, can we put our athletes onto the field of play as healthy as they can possibly be? And if we're doing that, we know we have the talent to succeed. So health and performance, those are linked. And then finally, I was saying to Munir when I was coming here that this is a process of learning and sharing for me, because we have a lot of blind spots. We have 40 plus sports. We'll put 1,200 people on a team. It is a substantial effort for us, and there are a lot of areas where we need support and we need help, and we need experts who are not in our organization to help us. So the question we ask is the blind spot being resolved? And in the instance of the first case study I showed you, that blind spot was very definitely resolved, because now we've expanded out into the full 4 disciplines that we have in Olympic throws. So that's my story. Thank you for your time, and I wish you guys a great conference. Thank you.